I remember the day I met Sarah so clearly, like a faded photograph held up to the light. It was at a silent auction fundraiser for local arts, a small affair held in a drafty community hall in Portland, Maine. I had just retired from teaching history at the university, 60 years old, with a quiet life in a small apartment building I own near campus. It had always been more of a passion project than a pure investment, a way to stay connected to the vibrant energy of young minds. Most of my tenants were students, and I took a certain pride in providing them a safe, affordable place to launch their lives. Sarah was huddled in a corner, near a display of student pottery, looking so small and out of place amidst the clinking glasses and polite chatter. She had wide, expressive eyes and a nervous energy that drew me in. When I struck up a conversation, she spoke with a soft, almost timid voice, telling me about her journey. She was an art student, just arrived in Portland, escaping a truly awful situation in rural Vermont, a family environment steeped in emotional abuse and neglect. She painted a picture of a young woman clawing her way out of darkness, determined to make something of herself, to use her art as a voice. Her passion for painting, for capturing the light and shadow of the human spirit, resonated deeply with my own love for historical narratives, for understanding the human condition. She wasn't asking for anything, just sharing her story, but I saw in her a raw vulnerability, a flicker of talent yearning to be nurtured. I saw my younger self in her, perhaps, or a daughter I never had. I felt a profound, almost instinctual urge to help, to be her stepping stone. My building had a small studio apartment on the top floor, recently vacated, a perfect space for an aspiring artist. The rent was reasonable, but I knew I could do better. I offered her a significant discount, almost half off, telling her it was a scholarship of sorts, an investment in her future. She looked at me with such genuine gratitude, tears welling in her eyes, saying I was an angel, a miracle. I walked home that night feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years, a quiet sense of purpose blooming in my chest. I believed I was giving her not just a place to live, but a chance at a new beginning, a protective shield against the shadows she'd fled. Sarah moved in a few weeks later, a whirlwind of youthful energy despite her quiet demeanor. Her initial shyness soon gave way to a charming, eager personality. She'd bring me small sketches, tentative at first, then bolder, asking for my opinion. I'm no art critic, of course, but I understood dedication, and hers seemed boundless. I found myself looking forward to her visits, the quiet moments when she'd tell me about her classes, her struggles with composition, her hopes for a better future. It wasn't just affordable housing I was providing. I saw it as a mentorship, a role I embraced with a genuine enthusiasm. I found myself buying her tubes of expensive paint, canvases, even a good quality easel, little surprises I'd leave by her door, explaining it away as a housing perk or an artistic grant. She needed a proper online presence, I told her, a portfolio to showcase her talent to the wider world. So, I spent hours with her, teaching her the basics of digital photography for her pieces, helping her build a simple but elegant website. It was satisfying work, feeling like I was truly making a difference, pouring my retired energies into something so profoundly good. She had a way of drawing people in. My other tenants, mostly students, seemed to like her, and she quickly endeared herself to the other, older residents in our quiet neighborhood. Mrs. Henderson, a sweet lady who lived 2 doors down and often struggled with her groceries, found Sarah always there to help. Mr. Peterson, the gruff but kind war veteran across the street, found a willing ear in Sarah when he wanted to recount old stories. She'd bake cookies, offer to walk dogs, even help with small errands. I beamed with pride, watching her integrate, thinking how wonderfully she was healing, thriving, blossoming under the simple kindness I had extended. She would tell me tales of her abusive past in Vermont, each story more harrowing than the last, reinforcing my conviction that I was indeed her guardian angel, protecting her from the darkness she'd escaped. Her vulnerability was her strength, I thought, a testament to her resilience. The quiet hum of her life in my building, the faint smell of turpentine that occasionally drifted from her window, became a comforting presence, a daily reminder of the good I believed I was doing. My compassion felt justified, my trust absolute. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, A faint, discordant note began to enter the symphony of our lives. It was nothing concrete at first, just a feeling, a brief flicker of unease I would quickly dismiss. Sarah began to spend less time on her art, or so it seemed. The smell of turpentine became less frequent. She was out more, often late into the night, returning quietly. When I asked, she'd offer vague explanations about art installations or study groups, or sometimes just a weary smile, attributing it to the demands of student life. I wanted to believe her, of course. My faith in her was so deeply rooted. There were small, odd details too. Once, I saw her accepting a package from a delivery driver, a plain brown box, but the way she snatched it, almost hiding it from my view, felt odd. I rationalized it away, telling myself she was a young woman with her own life, her own secrets, perhaps still shy about her newfound independence. The most disturbing sign, which I truly wrestled to ignore, was how intensely she cultivated her relationships with the elderly residents in the neighborhood. It started innocently, as I mentioned, helping with groceries or listening to stories. But then she seemed to be collecting them, almost. Mrs. Henderson's computer troubles suddenly became Sarah's domain. Mr. Peterson's tales of his service expanded to discussions of his financial affairs, his pension, his banking habits. I overheard fragments of these conversations, dismissed them as her being exceptionally kind, but a small voice in the back of my mind whispered of something a little too calculated, a little too keen. My internal narrative, however, was so heavily invested in Sarah's purity, her victimhood, her transformation, that I suppressed these doubts fiercely. I saw a young woman striving, and if she was a little intense, a little overly helpful, it was surely a manifestation of her gratitude, her desire to give back. I was so convinced I was protecting her, I never considered she might be the wolf in sheep's clothing, and I, the unwitting shepherd. The call came on a Tuesday morning, a crisp autumn day that suddenly felt as cold as deepest winter. It was Detective Miller from the local authorities, his voice calm but firm. He asked if I was Jason Thorne, owner of the apartment building on Elm Street. My heart hammered, a premonition of dread seizing me. He explained they were investigating a series of elaborate credit card frauds and identity thefts targeting elderly residents in my very neighborhood. My stomach dropped. He didn't mention names yet, but I knew, somehow. He then dropped the hammer. Surveillance footage from a nearby ATM had shown one of my tenants making suspicious, late-night withdrawals using several different cards. He paused, then said the name, Sarah Davies. The world tilted. My first reaction was fierce denial, a guttural protectiveness rising within me. No, not Sarah. My Sarah. The vulnerable artist. The abuse survivor. I must have misheard. I defended her vehemently, told him he had the wrong person, that Sarah was a good kid, had been through so much. He listened patiently, then asked for permission to speak with her, mentioning they had a warrant. A warrant. For my Sarah. When the officers arrived, their faces grim, a cold dread began to solidify in my chest. They showed me the blurry images from the ATM, and though her face was partially obscured, the distinctive scarf, the way she held her shoulders, it was undeniably her. My hope, my faith, shattered like glass. The search warrant for her apartment, the one I had so proudly offered, the one I had helped make a home, uncovered a sophisticated setup, multiple laptops, printers, stacks of blank plastic cards, holographic overlays, even equipment for skimming data. It wasn't an artist's studio. It was a factory of deception. The detective laid it all out. Sarah wasn't an abuse survivor, not in the way she'd spun it. She was part of a network, a ring of scammers from her alleged abusive past, who had indeed taught her well, not how to paint, but how to deceive. My apartment building, my sanctuary, had been their base of operations. She had been actively cultivating relationships with my elderly neighbors, gathering their personal information under the guise of community outreach, of being the helpful young student. Mrs. Henderson's computer troubles? Sarah was installing spyware. Mr. Peterson's financial discussions? Sarah was extracting account numbers. My trust, my quiet benevolence, my desire to be her guardian angel, had been the very shield she used to perpetrate her crimes. The shame was suffocating, the betrayal a physical blow. Every act of kindness, every thoughtful gesture, every penny I'd spent on her, had been nothing more than a complicit step in a meticulously crafted lie. My good intentions had paved her road to fraud. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Sarah was arrested, of course, her tearful pleas and claims of coercion falling on deaf ears as the mountain of evidence buried her. The trial was swift, her conviction inevitable, and she was sentenced to prison. I attended a few of the hearings, watching her, a hollow ache in my chest. She never looked at me, in OT once. Financially, I was untouched, thankfully. My meticulous records, my legal assistance in setting up her lease, protected me from any direct liability. But the emotional cost was immeasurable. The damage to my reputation within our close-knit community, a place where I had lived and been respected for decades, was profound. The neighbors were gracious, mostly, offering sympathy, saying I couldn't have known, that anyone could have been fooled. But I saw the lingering doubt in their eyes, the whispers behind cupped hands. I saw the questions. How could he have been so blind? So naive? My apartment building, once a source of quiet pride, became a monument to my folly. Every corner held a memory of her lies. Every tenant a reminder of my misplaced trust. The smell of turpentine, even when it was gone, lingered in my mind like a phantom. I couldn't live there anymore, couldn't look at those walls without feeling the cold grip of betrayal. I put the building up for sale, a painful severing of ties, seeking to distance myself from the very ground where my heart had been so thoroughly broken. The sale was quick, a clean break on paper, but the emotional scars ran deep. I retreated, spending weeks in a quiet haze of regret and self-recrimination. The dreams of mentorship, of nurturing young talent, were dead. I felt foolish, exposed, and utterly alone. My belief in my own judgment, once a quiet strength, had evaporated. Healing didn't come quickly, nor did it come easily. The silence in my own home, once comforting, now felt empty, echoing with the ghost of a compassion that had been so cruelly abused. I avoided familiar faces, unable to shake the feeling of their silent judgment. My daily walks past the university, once a pleasant routine, became a torturous reminder of the students I once championed, the vibrant youth I had wanted to empower. It was during one particularly bleak afternoon, aimlessly wandering through the city, that I found myself outside the Portland Historical Society, a place I had always admired but never truly engaged with. On a whim, I walked in, saw a flyer for volunteers. They needed help organizing archives, documenting forgotten stories, sifting through old ledgers and dusty maps. It was exactly what I needed. Tangible truths, verifiable facts. No compelling stories spun from thin air, no vulnerable eyes masking deceit. I found solace in the concrete evidence of the past, in piecing together narratives based on solid ground, not on the fragile foundations of a carefully constructed lie. My expertise as a history professor, once applied to grand narratives, now found a quiet purpose in documenting the small, verifiable details of the city's past. I learned to focus on what was real, what could be proven, what was demonstrably true, rather than on perceived narratives or the alluring fiction of someone else's pain. It was a slow, deliberate process, much like mending a broken vase, carefully gluing each shard back into place. I learned, slowly but surely, that genuine compassion, while essential, must be tempered with healthy boundaries, with a vigilant eye, and with a wise discernment. True generosity, I came to understand, is not about rescuing others, nor is it about blindly sacrificing oneself. It is about empowering those who genuinely seek it, those who are honest in their struggle, and those who are truly ready to build a better life, not just exploit a benevolent hand. The scars of Sarah's betrayal remain, a quiet ache that resurfaces from time to time, a bitter taste in the back of my throat. But the bitterness has faded, replaced by a quiet, hard-won wisdom. I still believe in helping, in connecting, in lending a hand. But now, I do so with open eyes, with a deeper understanding of human complexities, and with a firmer grasp on the fragile line between empathy and naivety. My heart is still open, but now, it beats with a guarded strength, a knowing resilience forged in the crucible of profound disappointment. I am, finally, myself again, a little older, a little wiser, and profoundly, quietly free.